What it is, y'all, it is your old boy Pilk, and I'm coming back today with more Danmachi. Now, today we're going to be talking about Record Buster. It's been a long time since we talked about Record Buster. You guys have been begging me to talk about these, and I'm going to be honest with you. I've been really lazy on this one. Now, we're going to work on this tonight on stream, so if you are, if you want to learn more, you want to actually do this live, we will be doing this live tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on the YouTube channel. Exclusively. Don't stream on Twitch anymore. At least not these. That's for console and PC gaming. Plug. So, to get into this, basically, I've been really lazy. I've been really bad. Because, honestly, I just recycled the exact same team. That I utilized for the past two Record Busters. And I've gotten good scores. And, in fact, you can see here, my score ain't bad. It's not great. It definitely could use some work, but it ain't bad. I'm in the top 200. And that's literally just auto-running it with a team that's literally just recycled. Now, I'm going to go over some techniques here and some tactics and some things that I've done to kind of get the unique score that I've gotten. And I will say, if you guys got the new Mikoto, she is absolutely stellar for this. So hopefully if you have her, you've been able to actually basically accumulate maybe even a better score than I've got, or you have the capability to. But we'll kind of talk about that when we get into it. But let's go ahead and talk about the main things that you need to know about Riviera. Riviera will remove your buffs. Debuffs stay in play. Buffs, on the other hand, are gone. Everything is wiped out at the end of turn 4, I believe, if I recollect. So, when we get in here, we're just going to do a quick run. We're going to go in, we're going to talk about this. Now, she does do sleep, so you need to make sure on all of your units using a Glorious Anklet that handles sleep, or if you don't have the Glorious Anklet, you need to make sure you have an assist on your units that does anti-sleep. But you've got to have sleep resistance. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that people misunderstand about Record Buster. If you do not have resistance to whatever ailment is occurring, you are not going to succeed. So you need ailment resistance 100%. Let's go in here, let's talk about this, and let's just kind of see what we can do on this particular run. Now I'm going to turn off auto battle because I don't want to actually auto battle this. I want to see what I can kind of muster here. And you will notice that the Memoria did kind of activate and do its thing. I forget what that Memoria does, if I'm completely honest. I've not leveled it up, not done much with it. We're going to see what happens with Memoria after the next big update. They should push that out here really soon if they haven't already by the time this video goes live. So, let's go see what's up, alright? So, first things first, Riviera natively is weak to water, and I've debuffed wind a little bit, but she's natively weak to water. So you really want to use a water team. Now, you will notice that I'm using a physical team, but she's weak to magic. You want to utilize a magic team more than a physical team. So while I am getting good scores with this team, it's honestly just because, well, water is that insane right now. Water is absolutely nuts. So if you take some of the tactics I'm utilizing here and you build a magic team for this, or magic water team, you will absolutely dominate. But let's continue on. Now, right out of the gate, we need 33% SAH charge. SAH charge is going to be the lifeblood of this team. Okay? Everybody else is literally just going to do their general buff stack. I kind of do my buff stack a little weird. It's probably, honestly, not preferable, but it seems to get me the numbers that I like. So I'm going to stick with it. Now, I do have Winnie coming in, and normally you'll notice that we use the revolving amulet, and the reason for that is because I like units to come in, do one thing, and then leave. With her, I've got a level 1 sleep anklet on her because I want her to at least stay until turn 3. After turn 3, she can do whatever she does. In fact, I'm going to kind of go over something interesting with her. But for now, we're going to go ahead and just use her, basically her buff-debuff replication skill. Everybody else is going to continue their buff stack. Nothing really crazy, or buff and debuff stack. Nothing really crazy, nothing, out of the ordinary, but we do need to make sure that we're keeping the debuffs on Riviera. We've got to have those debuffs, okay? So, everything looks good here. We're on turn 3. Now, you will notice that Winnie is now going to do her SA. I need this SA to go off, and if I wait until turn 4 because I have, deliberately weakened her, I could be in a world of hurt. So I really want to get this off as quickly as possible. Now, the best thing about Winnie is that she can actually do debuff replication again on turn 4 if she survives this. So that's really good. That's what we kind of want. Now, everybody else is going to move on and do their single target skill. So let's go ahead and do this, right? Now, if you're not familiar what this is going to do, okay, it's not going to hit big. It's not going to hit big, but I'll show you in a moment here why I choose to do this and some very important caveat to this skill. And we haven't really talked a huge amount about this skill and about why to do this skill. I hope most people kind of understand the idea of a manual sack, but if you don't, check this out. Okay? And this will help a lot of people that are brand new at the game too. So we've debuffed strength and magic down 45%. We don't really need debuff strength, but that debuff magic is going to help out a lot. Okay? But what we did is we did all unit resistance and 1 unit resistance down 50%. That is Winnie's SA. That's the best thing she does. That means every single target attack, every single AoE attack means during our buff debuff stacks, and now during every other major hit and every counter, we're doing 50% more damage. That's important. That's stupid important. Okay? You will also know notice that we've debuffed for agility. That's going to be really good to make sure we can get our skills off first. And, of course, the water and physical resistance debuffs are really important. Everything down here with the square, those are actually the debuffs that come from our assist side. We're not overly worried about that yet. But on this one, I'm going to go ahead and do Mingle. That does the debuff and buff replication. Oh, notice +2 turns. Remember, every single turn that we utilize up a turn, it's going to add 2 back. So it's like 1 step forward, 2 steps back, sort of. Except it's 1 step back, 2 steps forward. So at the end of this, where Riviera is sitting here at 1 unit resistance and all unit resistance, this is the important one. This is the important one. This is the one we need to make sure does not run out. Everything else can be put back on. This one, after this turn, cannot be reapplied. So we've got to make sure this stays in place. So it's 2 turns here. Normally they'd be down to 1 turn on turn 5. But with this skill, that's going to take that up to 4 turns, and then when she uses 1, it's going to take it down to 3 turns. So basically, Winnie's skill is like adding 1 to that number, more or less. Just to simplify it, pretty much. So on turn 5, you'll see that those skills are +3 now instead of +2. So we're good there. Now, I'm going to have everybody else but Welf, emphasize here, but Welf, do their big single target attack. Now, Welf, if he does that, he's going to remove strength and magic buffs. And as much as I would like for that to happen most of the time, if he does do that, Winnie's going to survive this this turn, and I really need Haruhime to come in. So I've got to get rid of that skill. We've got to make sure that when she does her big SA at the end of this one, that basically her magic buff, the big magic buff she's going to give herself, stays in play. If not, and you'll notice up here, the best way for me to like describe this, if you're watching the skills, you notice those little circles and squares that are around her on there, that's icons. If you're not using icons in the game, I know it doesn't look pretty, but you got to utilize it. You got to learn these skills if you haven't already, because these will teach you so much about your opponent. So, you'll notice that everything up there has like a red mark down. In a moment, she's going to buff her magic. That's going to give her a blue mark up. That's her magic buff. And basically anything with a red down arrow is a debuff. Anything with a blue up arrow is a buff. So watch that happen here in a moment. And when that happens, she's going to hit everybody, but everybody's got a lot of armor. Everybody else here is maximum broken. Everybody else is strong. Winnie is deliberately made weak so that at the end of this turn, she can just kind of, well, disappear. There's that magic buff. See that big M with the blue up arrow. It's hard to see under some of the attacks, but pay close attention. It's the third skill added to the top. Okay, and you'll notice that Winnie is down. She took a lot of damage, and that's actually what we want. If you watch the series, it breaks your heart every time you do this. It literally, like, every part of me is like actually a little mad at Right Flyer for making us do this, but for the numbers we get out of Record Buster, it's just got to happen that way. There are quite a few manual sack units in the game that literally we just use for their assist skills. Whenever you hear me talk about, like, before you saw my video and I talk about a sack, That's what we're talking about right there. That or a turn 1, basically somebody that comes in does a big buff, big debuff. But that's an SA sack. So we just try to get their SA off and then kind of move on with our day. Now, everybody else is back to doing a buff or a debuff. Now, you will notice that Riviera has all of her debuffs applied. So she also still has that magic buff, but I'm not overly worried about that because I don't think it can hurt us at the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and do Dawn Wind with Haruhime. Now, we don't necessarily... well, actually, we do. We need the 33% of Sigage charge buff back, plus that's going to give us all targets down 35%. That's going to be really good because when she's attacking, most of the attacks this turn are AoE attacks. That's going to protect us a lot. And for the next 3 actions, she heals 30% of HP and does, remember, status buff plus 2 turns. So for the next 3 turns, she's going to be increasing the status buff. So while we're doing all of our main buffs on these turns, those will stay in play. Remember, when you see this plus X actions, that always takes place on the following turns. So that means turns 6, 7, and 8. Basically long enough for her to get her next SA off and wipe out our buffs again. And then, of course, we're going to do that again on turn 9. So let's go ahead and do that. With everybody else, we just need to make sure we get our buffs off, not debuffs. We need to pay close attention to make sure we're getting buffs, not debuffs. And what's really nice here, you see that extra action? That's going to be really nice because that's going to give us extra hits on, once again, turns 6, 7, and 8. Okay? That is a debuff, but it also does strength and water buff, so we're good to go there. Now, we are hurting a little bit for health here, but Haruhime does a counter heal, so she should, there we go, heal Aisha, so we'll be fine. We're going to be just fine. All right. And notice she still has the magic buff. Now, I do probably want to get rid of that magic buff before long, but it's not, we're not at a state yet where it's, you know, deadly. Now, the one thing we do want to come up here and double check, all unit and 1 unit resistance. Notice it's back down to 2 turns. I did say it was up to 3 turns. Remember, we're not replicating it that turn. So in this turn, we need to make sure we replicate that to make sure it doesn't run out. This 1 unit and all unit resistance 50%, that's super critical to basically what we're trying to do here. So I'm going to do Blowing Wind. That does status debuff plus 2 turns. It's going to debuff her status. But remember also the extra attack, the secondary action she's going to do here. You'll see that she does Blowing Wind and then she does Dawn Wind. Notice she does one of each. The Dawn Wind is the extra action. That's going to basically modify our buffs, but modifying that debuff is super, super, super critical. Okay? Now, we did do, let's see. So this will take AGL and physical resistance down 40%. I don't think we need that. And her extra action is good. And it is an AoE. So you know what? I'm actually going to buff that. Just to get a little bit out. Bell's 80% though. Probably will more than make up for it. Let's just do it. Let's keep doing a single target. So basically what we've got to do here is kind of decide. With this 80% buff, is it worth doing this and getting an extra attack, or just go for the throat with the 80%? Because remember, that becomes a 160% hit. Now, we could math it. In fact, you know, let's just do a little mathematics here. I'm going to slow this down to single times, and we're going to watch the damage that Torrent Slash does versus the damage that Vertex does. So let's see what Torrent Slash does first. Okay. This gives her... Or, I'm sorry, her. That's wealth. This gives wealth, strength plus 100%. And Aisha, I don't think needs anything else. Ally strength, water damage plus 50%. She will need something. Because I don't think... Yeah, it's self buff. That is self buff. So she's got nothing. So she's going to need that buff. So let's go ahead and do that and see where we get. So everybody's doing skill 1. Everybody did skill 2 last turn. So everybody's doing skill 1 this turn, except Haruhime is doing skill 3. Okay? So Torrent Slash did... I didn't pay much attention. It didn't do a huge amount of damage, though. I'd have to go back and review the footage. But I think it did... Honestly, I think it did like 5-digit damage, which isn't a huge amount. Now, this turn we're going to do Vortex. Vortex is going to get that 80%. It's going to be really big. It's going to be huge. And then we'll see what the Torrent Slash extra attack does. This should be similar-ish. Similar-ish. And then everybody else is going to do their single targets on this turn. Haruhime is going to continue doing Blowing Wind. In fact, I could do Night Storm, but we don't need that yet. Penetration critical rate is, well, it could be increased. Let's see, where are we at here? 3 turns? Let's do it. Let's get our critical and penetration rate up. And that'll help get a little bit of extra damage out. So let's see. So we're going to watch what with Bell, what Vertex does, and then Torrent Slash. Let's take a look. Okay. Bell, what you got? Vertex did almost 800k. Actually, Torrent Slash did another 150k, it looked like. So that might have actually been somewhat worthwhile. An extra 300,000 damage. But actually, I take that back because it would have been 800k on the other attack. So I don't think it's going to make up the difference. I don't think there's any way to really make up that difference. So my answer to that would be, if you're using this team, just stick with a single target attack. Sometimes you got to math these things out. Now, on this turn, once again, we're going to do third skill with everybody. On this turn, we do want Riviera to get rid of her magic buff skill. If we don't do that, we are going to hate life. Some people might not survive to turn 9, so we got to make sure that Welf does skill 3 to remove the magic buff. Got to get that out of there. So, we're back doing Blowing Wind, but that's mostly just because you'll notice that 1 unit and all unit resistance is back down to 2 turns. Now, if we don't replicate it this turn, it's going to drop again, and then it'll be gone on turn 9. So you need to pay very close attention to these. So, here we go. I'll show you on turn 9 that's actually going to be back up to 3 turns, and you will notice we're building up our SA gauge charge. There's a big reason for that, which I'll get to in just a moment. But first, let's see what happens here. Now, I got to turn this back up to double speed. There we go. Some great hits out of our units here. Just absolutely phenomenal hits. And that SA would have killed us had we not gotten rid of the magic buff. Instead, it did like next to nothing. So, very happy about that. And once again, if I look up here in turn 9, notice 3 turns. But remember, Haruhime's got to do Dawn Wind. So on the next turn, we'll be down to 2 turns. Okay? So we've got to be careful. Got to be very careful. Now, one thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to more focus, rather than buffing on this turn, I'm going to focus on the extra actions. Now, that does do an agility buff. I like that agility buff. You know what? I actually don't think we need the agility buff, if I'm honest. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a little test here. I don't think that agility buff is going to do a huge amount for Bell. It's just going to make him a little bit faster. But in Record Buster, speed isn't everything. It does mean sometimes certain things will proceed a little bit faster. And we can always reapply it if we need it. Or we can, I'm just going to run a test. I'm going to run a test and do extra actions with him. I'm going to buff everybody's extra action skill. And you'll see why I'm doing this here. Now notice, this is strength 100%. But I'm going to just buff the extra action skill. And I'll show you why. Okay? I'm going to do that. Yeah, I think that's going to be the best possible move. Actually, you know what? Yeah. Yeah. There's a big reason I'm going to do this, and y'all will see in a moment here. Okay? So, with her, it's kind of a mixed bag, but actually I realized that, well, you'll see what I mean on the next turn. Let's buff everybody's extra action skill here and see where we get. Now remember, Haruhime's doing Dawn Wind. And I'll show you kind of where we need to be extremely cautious on turn 10. Okay? So, we're back down to 2 turns on this. So we've got to play it cool here. If that gets down to 1 turn, we must, absolutely must, do Blowing Wind. But I really want to get her SA off here. Reason being, going forward, she no longer removes our buffs. So now is where we want to do our SAs to get big, big buff skills. So, Strength and Magic plus 120%. Yes, I want that. Water damage plus 100%. Yes, I want that. Now, be careful here and pay close attention to these skills, because notice that is for 3 turns. There's some of these that do 100% that are 1 turn. 3 turns is good. 3 turns is fine. If you're doing one that works for only 1 turn, then you need to make sure you have somebody on the team that can buff Strength and Magic. That's not just for this one, or sorry, that can buff, that can increase buff replication skills. Sorry. brain was in the middle of something else. So, long story short, if this says 1 turn, you must have somebody on the team that can do a skill similar to this, similar to like what Winnie did, where we buff, let's debuff replication. But her extra action does buff replication. But remember, with essays, they're not going to do their extra action. So, we'll talk about that when we get to turn 11. But first, we're going to do 120% strength of magic, 100% water, and we're going to do our essay with Aisha. If you haven't seen my videos on her, I know this is an AoE skill. I know this is not preferable, but buckle up. I know that she's not supposed to produce what she produces here, but it is going to be worth. Check this out. Okay? So that's just a buff. Everybody gets everything. Everything's going to be really nice. Bell's going to do an attack. Not crazy attack, but remember, number 1, he's an AoE. Number 2, the main goal of that was a buff. Check out what Aisha does. Okay? I'm just going to let her essay run because she's ridiculous. Go, girl. 1.5 mil. Okay? Now, I want to emphasize here, I believe we missed critical and penetration on that. I wasn't paying a huge amount of attention. I was mostly looking at the number. But if we missed critical and penetration on that, that number could get so much higher. And I've seen her hit for... Now, mind you, she's not preferable in here. I want to once again mention that while we have debuff physical down 65%, number 1, we could buff it further. Number 2, if I'd done those debuffs on magic, our magic unit would have hit a lot harder. But with that physical stat down even more, I have seen her hit 5 mil on an essay. She is insane. An AoE should not be doing numbers like that. But she does, and she's insane. Now, once again, this is where I say a single target. If you don't know single target skills versus AoE skills, single targets just generally hit harder. Whereas an ultra boost on an AoE is like 200%. For single target, it's like 300%. And it drops off drastically. Highs are like 50% for an AoE, or like 100% for a single target. So things like that for those skills you need to pay very, very, very close attention to. But now, you'll notice even Welf here, who is not part of that SA group, strength of magic up 120%, counter rate up 50%, water attack damage up 100%. And he gets us an additional action, and he's got everything up here, and he's got all unit resistance, and he's got fire attribute resistance. He is, or no, I take that back. I think the fire attribute resistance was a debuff. Yes, it was, because it has a red arrow down. Sorry, fire attribute resistance is down. That means he's going to take extra damage. I'm a little, if I'm honest here, worried about Bell. But Haruhime should be okay here. Now, if you want to know, Night Storm would be great, but be cautious here. Notice that all of my skills are down to 1 turn. If I let that lapse, I'm never getting that back. So, as much as I would love that big buff from her skill 1, I've got to do skill 3 here. There's no way around it. Everybody else is fine doing skill 3. We don't need anything else. The only thing that Bell might be missing is his agility boost. But once again, I don't think it's really prudent for him. I think he's going to do fine. Except he died. That literally is just an RNG hiccup. He took extra damage. I've gotten so far in here, I really just don't want to go back and redo this fight. That is going to negatively affect my numbers, and that is truly unfortunate. But I'm kind of curious what the numbers will look like now at the end with all 3 of them. Now, the downside is that does mean it's going to mess up my final game, because my goal here is to keep building that SA charge. So I'll be missing a lot of SA charge every single turn. I might still eke out a double. But I don't 100% know. Let's go play this cool and see what happens here. Now, on this one, I can buff Night Storm. That's going to give everybody critical and penetration rate. And I think that will help a bit. Plus, notice, we're back up there to 2 turns. So, let's see. But our SA gauge charge might be running out here shortly. SA gauge charge is still good for 3 turns. So, and Dawn Wind is good for 2 turns. which means we need to rebuff Dawnwind next turn. So no, I can't afford Nightstorm. I've got to do Blazing Wind. There's just no two ways about it. I've got to get this done the right way. So let's go back in here. Everybody else is going to do their single target skills. Pretty much everybody's going to spam their single targets. And as much as it would be nice to get extra actions, I don't think it's going to be really necessary. So literally just going to spam the single target skills, except during essays. That's it. It's just that simple. Boom. Now, once again, Dawnwind is lapsing, and we need to have... I mean, well, hold on. Do we even need buff replication? We actually don't. We actually do not. Let's see. Buffs are going to run out here. 4 turns. We've only got 2 turns to the end. 3 turns to the end. So actually, I miscalculated. I actually don't need Dawnwind. As much as that heal would be nice, I actually think I can do without. So I probably could have done Nightstorm last turn, and that's going to cost me a little bit of damage here. But I think we're good. I think we're good. Now, I'm going to avoid doing her essay here. Yeah. I'm going to avoid doing her essay. Well, hold on. So here's the deal, and I'll go over it in the next turn. Let's do this turn, and let's go over it on the next turn, because I really kind of want to make sure we get critical and penetration with her attack. That, I think, was a big deficiency in her first attack. Not to mention, well, Bell croaking also was a pretty massive deficiency. But we're going to go do third skill with Wealth, and we're going to go back to do a Blowing Wind here. I don't think Blowing Wind's even necessary at this point. In fact, it is not. We've got 2 turns, and everything is going to run out in 2 turns anyway. So the main reason I'm going to do this is because it is a superclass single target attack. So it's at least going to, or I'm sorry, superclass AoE attack. So it's actually going to do some damage. Everybody else is superclass single target. Now, Aisha is once again going to do her SA. That's just because if you pay close attention here, she gets 80% per each water attack damage buff. Wealth doesn't really get that. In fact, you know what? Just because my numbers aren't going to look great, I'm going to stow it, and I'm going to do a double SA and kind of show you why I make that decision here. All right? Let's just go. I mean, my numbers are already going to be garbage because Belle died. But I'm just going to show you. I'm going to fudge the number here, and I'm just going to show you the reason I make this decision. So I'm going to do a double SA with Wealth and almost called her Mikoto. I want the new Mikoto maxed out so I can use her on this team. Aisha. So, Wealth, Ultra Water Physical Attack, Temporary Great Strength Boost, which is nice, but it is not the 80% that Aisha gets. And he's going to buff Water Strength Magic Water Attack damage. Nice as that would be, unnecessary. We really don't need that, and it's not going to do us a whole lot of good. Now, there is some question as to using that on, like, turn 10 or something would have produced much bigger numbers for us in the long run. But I think, honestly, for the amount of damage we would do if we'd done 2 SAs with Aisha, or even better with Mikoto, I think this it would have paid to do an SA turn 14 and 15. With this team, there's a way I could have eked out a third SA, so literally 13, 14, and 15 would have been SAs with Aisha, but I'm just going to show you the damage differential. So bear in mind, he gets great temporary strength boost, but he does not get a percentage boost. Aisha gets 80% per each self-water attack damage buff skill. Here's why that's important. There's a water attack damage buff skill right here. She gets 100% water attack damage buff skill. That basically becomes 180%. Sort of. The math's a little bit different, but it's hard to explain. But if I go down here, notice she's got a water attribute damage buff skill right here as well. 15% then is going to become 95%. So she gets 160% extra damage just from both of those skills. So let's see the damage difference between these two. Because I honestly don't know what it is. It would be very interesting. Now, I did say that because he's a single target, he should get a much higher number. I believe his Ultra Boost is like 300%, whereas Aisha's only going to be 200%. But check this out. Let's just compare the numbers here. All right, Wealth did 1.7 mil. Aisha did 2.5 mil. Even though she's technically weaker, that percentage boost means the universe, the absolute world. So, let's see what we did here. Turn 15, everybody survived. All you got to do is have one person survive, really, to get the numbers out. And we got a 755. With Belle being dead for, what, a third of the fight. So that probably would have been, what, 900,000 or something like that? Or 900 million, I'm sorry. That would have been an insane number. And I want to emphasize, this isn't even the optimal team. If you've got a water magic team that you could throw out at this event, you could kill it. I mean, wreck this event. So, start planning your teams accordingly, guys. Hopefully that gives you all the clues and all the help you guys need. If you want to know more about what kind of attacks she does and which turns and all that stuff, number one, you can analyze this. Number two, you could join the Discord down below in the guides or the breakdowns of all the attacks that each of the Record Buster bosses do each turn. But hopefully that gives you guys some clues. Like, comment, share all the good stuff. I'm going to catch you all on the next one. And don't forget, live stream tonight at 10 p.m. Although all of you have tuned out by now. Eastern time.